Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
Freemasonry teaches us a lot about managing and dealing with change. And one of the ways that it does that, it uses a parable in a third degree of Hiram Abiff. And the story of that you can find in your local lodge, at your Blue Lodge. But the ins and outs of it are very similar to any of the models out there in dealing with grief or change. And so when you look at how a person grows, even for personal development reasons, they will very typically follow a typical standard pattern. And so the pattern can be mapped with the grief curve. Elizabeth Kubler Ross is a Swiss-American psychiatrist who wrote a book called On Death and Dying. And in that book, she studied she wrote about her studies of folks that deal with grief and dying. And in that process, there were consistent, repeatable stages. And those stages are really useful in dealing with any meaningful traumatic change. You will go through them when you change. You will go through them when the environment changes or the situation changes. And that process starts, I guess, and we'll go through the five typical stages. It goes through denial, where you refuse to believe what you are being confronted with. Anger, which might be resentment or frustration. It might be anxiety. Then through to bargaining, where you have to kind of reestablish meaning in the environment you're in or with the reality you're confronted with. Depression, where you are then lost a little bit in the change process that comes through or dealing with the loss of a loved one. And then acceptance, where you then begin to find a new way to grow. And when you apply these processes to yourself, you'll find that more often than not, the things that you need to do when you change will be mapped out in a similar process. I've had conversations with brothers from the lodge where they are dealing with something perhaps traumatic or a change that they need to make, and change is hard. But as they go through this process, if you know these kind of major steps and you follow the ritual that you've been given, you'll find that there is a ton of insight there on maybe not the experiential how to move through it, but at the very least, the architecture, the landscape of how one changes relative to the work, and uses that work to then enhance their understanding and grow and become a stronger person. So as you are going through the process, understand that change that you are confronted with, while it may be scary, while it may feel, you may feel lost, you may feel searching, there is rebirth at the other end of that change. And that rebirth and growth should help you feel just a little bit more comfortable that you're actually on the right path. The folks that are wisest among us will actually seek the discomfort that comes through this process, because it means that there is that rebirth on the other side. And in that is a new, more positive, better reality.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com, and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.